Hana Fujimoto was a woman who carried elegance in every step she took. At 38, she had become the definition of resilience in her small Japanese town. 5 years had passed since her husband's sudden death, but the memories still lingered in every corner of her luxurious suburban house near Tokyo. The wide garden filled with blooming flowers and the polished wooden floors of the modern interior gave the impression of wealth, but beneath the surface, Hana's heart remained heavy. Every evening, when the sun disappeared behind the horizon, silence would descend upon the vast house like a shroud. She often sat in her spacious living room staring at a framed photo of her late husband. His smile in the picture seemed to speak to her, reminding her of a love that once made life vibrant. "I need someone here. This house is too big, too quiet," she whispered one night, her voice trembling as if admitting it to herself for the first time. Loneliness was an enemy that no amount of money or success could defeat. Hana, despite her flourishing family business, yearned for companionship, someone who could share the silence, bring laughter, and make the house feel alive again. After weeks of contemplation, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She would hire a domestic worker. Not just anyone, but someone from abroad, someone with a warm and genuine spirit. After much consideration, she chose to hire a young man from Pakistan, a country she had heard was filled with kind and family-oriented people. His name was Dadang Ahmed, a 20-year-old from a small village in Punjab. He was the eldest of 5 siblings, a boy who had carried the weight of responsibility from an early age. His father was a farmer, his mother a housewife, and life in his village was far from easy. Dadang had taken the courageous step to leave his home and migrate abroad, determined to support his family and finance his siblings' education. When Dadang arrived in Japan, the spring breeze carried the scent of cherry blossoms across the streets. Hana greeted him at the entrance of her home with a warm smile, her elegance softened by a kindness that put him at ease. "Welcome, Dadang. Thank you for coming all the way here," she said in simple English. Nervous but respectful, Dadang bowed slightly. "Thank you, Madam Hana. I will work very hard," he replied in broken Japanese, his accent thick, but his sincerity unmistakable. From the very first day, Dadang worked with enthusiasm. He swept the corridors, polished the wooden floors, trimmed the garden hedges, and even offered to help Hana in the kitchen. Though awkward at first because of cultural differences, he quickly adapted. His respect for Hana showed in small gestures, the way he listened attentively, the way he never complained, and the way his genuine smile brightened even the quietest corners of the house. For the first time in years, Hana felt a flicker of warmth in her cold home. The presence of this young Pakistani worker stirred something she had not felt in a long time: hope. The days turned into weeks, and slowly the presence of Dadang Ahmed transformed the atmosphere inside Hana Fujimoto's house. The once lifeless walls now echoed with the faint sounds of footsteps, the soft humming of a young man cleaning, and the occasional laughter that slipped out unintentionally from him. Hana would sometimes pause at the doorway of a room, watching Dadang work diligently, and she would feel an unfamiliar sense of comfort. One evening, after a particularly long day managing her business accounts, Hana found herself sitting at the dining table with Dadang. It wasn't planned. She had asked him to bring her tea, but instead of returning to his chores, he hesitated and then sat across from her when she gestured for him to stay. The clinking of the cups filled the silence until Hana broke it gently. "Why did you choose to work here, Dadang?" she asked, her voice soft, curious. Dadang placed his cup down and smiled faintly, though his eyes carried the weight of his reality. "Life in my village is hard, madam. My father works on the fields, but it is never enough. I have younger brothers and sisters who dream of studying. I want to give them a chance at a better life." Hana felt her throat tighten. She admired the way this young man, barely 20, carried himself with such responsibility. She was moved by his sincerity, by the way his words came not from ambition for himself, but from sacrifice for his family. "You are very young," she said thoughtfully, her gaze resting on him. "But you carry such a big heart, such responsibility." "I respect that, Dadang." Truly, his cheeks turned a little red at the compliment, and he bowed his head. "Thank you, madam. I will always do my best." As time passed, their conversations grew longer. At first, it was only small talk about his village, about her late husband, about simple things like the weather or food. But gradually, the distance between employer and employee began to blur. Hannah started to open up about her loneliness, the quiet ache of living in a house too big for one person. One night, sitting together in the garden, Hannah admitted with teary eyes, "Even though I have everything, a business, a house, this garden, I feel empty. My husband is gone, and sometimes I feel like I am living in a shell." Dadang's heart tightened. He had never seen Madame Hannah look so vulnerable. Without hesitation, he said, "Madame, if there is anything I can do to help, I will do it." The sincerity in his tone made Hannah's eyes glisten. She realized that in Dadang she had found not only a helper, but someone who truly cared. His laughter began to warm the house. His polite presence gave her peace, and his quiet strength filled the silence that once haunted her. For Dadang too, Hannah was more than just his employer. She was a figure of dignity and kindness, someone who gave him the opportunity to dream. In his heart, he began to feel a growing respect that was slowly turning into something deeper. The bond they were creating was no longer just about duty. It was becoming something far more meaningful. Spring had settled over Tokyo, painting the nights with the fragrance of blooming cherry blossoms. Hannah's garden, once a symbol of emptiness, now felt alive with the faint sound of crickets and the quiet companionship of Dadang Ahmed. One evening, they both sat in the back garden after dinner. The night sky stretched above them, studded with stars that shimmered like scattered diamonds. "It's beautiful," Dadang whispered, tilting his head toward the heavens. His eyes glistened with the wonder of someone who had not yet grown used to the splendor of Japan's seasons. Hannah smiled softly, following his gaze. "Yes, it is beautiful. But beauty feels different when it is shared." Her words slipped out almost unconsciously, surprising even herself. She glanced at Dadang, who looked confused at first, then lowered his eyes shyly. A silence lingered between them, broken only by the rustling of the cherry trees. Hannah took a deep breath, her heart racing with a courage she hadn't felt in years. "Dadang, there is something I want to say." He turned toward her, curiosity in his eyes, but remained silent, waiting. "Since the months you came here, I have felt something I never expected." She began, her voice trembling but steady. "You are not just a worker to me. You bring warmth, kindness, and happiness into my life. Things I thought I had lost forever after my husband died." Dadang's heart pounded. His hands tightened on his knees. He had not been prepared for this. His employer, Madame Hannah, graceful and older, was now speaking with a vulnerability that shook him. "I know," she continued, her voice softer. "We are different. Our ages, our cultures, our worlds. But feelings do not ask for permission. They come quietly. And they stay." Dadang swallowed hard. He felt the weight of her confession, yet he couldn't deny the truth within himself. For weeks, he had noticed the way her smile made his chest tighten, the way her sadness made him want to protect her. But admitting it was another matter. I respect you deeply, Madame Hannah," he said finally, his voice low. "And I cannot lie. Being with you makes me feel something too. I don't know what name to give it, but I feel it." Tears welled in Hannah's eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were of relief. She reached across the small table between them and placed her hand gently over his. Dadang stiffened at first, then relaxed, letting the warmth of her touch sink into his skin. "Thank you for being honest," Hannah whispered. "You don't know how much it means to me." For a long moment, they sat together in silence. Their hands joined, the night sky above them, silently witnessing the birth of something new. In that garden, surrounded by blossoms and starlight, a widow rediscovered her heart, and a young man realized that love could cross borders, ages, and fears. Their relationship was no longer just about work. It had become a fragile, beautiful secret they now shared. The relationship between Hannah Fujimoto and Dadang Ahmed began to blossom quietly, like a flower that grows stronger with each sunrise. Their conversations grew longer, their laughter more frequent, and the silences between them more comfortable. What had once been an empty house now carried the rhythm of companionship. For Hana, each day felt lighter. For Dadang, each day felt like he was discovering a new version of himself. One evening, they sat together in the living room. A warm lamp lit the space while the sound of distant rain tapped against the windows. Hana stared into her cup of green tea, her thoughts tangled. Dadang noticed the seriousness on her face. "Madam Hana," he asked gently, "are you thinking about something important?" She gave a small, weary smile. "You always notice, don't you?" Taking a deep breath, she placed her cup on the table and looked at him with eyes that were brave yet uncertain. "Dadang, there is something I have always dreamed of, something I never had." He leaned forward slightly, waiting. "I want to be a mother," Hana said softly. "I want to raise a child, to feel the joy of holding a baby in my arms. I have wealth, I have a house, I have a business, but I do not have a family." Her voice trembled as she admitted her longing. Dadang froze. The words struck him deeply, leaving him silent. At 20, he was still a young man with little experience in life, let alone in raising a child. Marriage, fatherhood, family, these were things he had never imagined for himself. Not so soon. "I don't know what to say," he whispered honestly. Hana reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "I know this may sound impossible, but Dadang, you already bring warmth into my life. I believe you could bring warmth into a child's life as well." His mind raced with images of his own family in Pakistan, his younger siblings depending on him, his parents waiting for his support. Could he truly take on the role of a father in a foreign country? Would he be strong enough to carry such responsibility? Seeing his hesitation, Hana smiled gently, trying to reassure him. "I don't need perfection. I don't need you to have all the answers. I just need honesty, care, and willingness. We could learn together." For days after that conversation, Dadang carried her words in his heart. At night, he stared at the photo of his family on his small bedside table, wondering if destiny was pushing him toward a path he never expected. But one thing was clear. Hana had given him more than employment. She had given him trust, dignity, and love. Perhaps, he thought, giving her the family she longed for was the greatest way to return what she had given him. The seed of a new dream had been planted in both their hearts, and though uncertain, it carried the promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. Days slipped into weeks, and the unspoken weight of Hana's request lingered between her and Dadang. The garden bloomed in full spring, cherry blossoms drifting across the paths like pink snow, but in Dadang's heart, there was both beauty and confusion. He admired Hana deeply, perhaps even loved her, yet the responsibility she asked for was immense. To be a husband and father at only 20, it was a life he had never envisioned. One night, Hana and Dadang sat together in the living room. The air felt heavy, as though both had been waiting for this moment. Hana poured tea for them both, her hands slightly trembling. Dadang looked at her, his eyes reflecting determination. "Madame Hana," he began carefully, "I have thought deeply about what you told me. About wanting a family, wanting children." He paused, gathering his courage. "At first, I was afraid. I thought, how can someone like me, young, inexperienced, give you what you want? But I realized something. Since I came here, you have given me more than just work. You gave me a home, respect, and trust. You made me feel I am not just a poor boy from Pakistan, but someone worthy of love." Hana's eyes filled with tears. She had been waiting for these words, though she feared they might never come. Dadang continued, his voice firmer now. "If this is the life you want, I will try. I will learn. I will do everything to make you happy. I want to walk this path with you, not just as your worker, but as your partner." Hana's hands trembled as she set her teacup down. She reached forward, taking Dadang's hands in her own. "You don't know how happy this makes me." "Thank you, Dadang. Thank you for choosing to share this life with me." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they were tears of relief, of hope. For the first time in years, she saw a clear future. Not a future of emptiness, but one filled with laughter, small footsteps, and shared dreams. From that night on, their relationship shifted. They were no longer simply employer and employee, or even companions. They became partners in a dream. Hana began teaching Dadang about family life, about responsibility, about how two people could build a future together. She encouraged him to share his own fears, to speak honestly, and she promised to guide him, not pressure him. At the same time, Dadang grew more determined. He stopped seeing himself as just a helper in Hana's house. He began imagining himself as part of it, someone who would protect it, nurture it, and help it grow. Yet, beneath their newfound courage, both knew challenges awaited them. Society might not understand. Their families might not approve. But as Hana looked at Dadang's sincere face and Dadang felt Hana's steady trust in him, they both understood one truth. Love was worth the risk. The decision was made. They would no longer hide behind fear. Together, they would build the family Hana longed for and the life Dadang never knew he wanted. After their heartfelt decision, life inside Hana's grand suburban home began to change. The air no longer felt heavy with silence. Instead, it carried a rhythm of shared purpose. Hana, who once wandered the halls with loneliness pressing against her chest, now found herself laughing at Dadang's little mistakes in the kitchen or smiling at his clumsy attempts at Japanese phrases. But alongside the warmth of their growing bond came the weight of responsibility. Hana wanted Dadang to be more than just a partner in her heart. She wanted him to grow into the role of a husband and eventually a father. One morning, while they were tending to the garden, she turned to him. "Dadang," she said, softly kneeling near the flower beds, "I want you to learn more than just housework. I want you to understand business, life, and responsibility. If we are to build a family, you must also be a partner in everything." Dadang frowned slightly, wiping the soil from his hands. "But, Madame Hana, I have no education in business. I am only a high school graduate. I don't think I am capable of helping you in that way." Hana reached out, gently resting her hand on his arm. "Capability isn't only about education, Dadang. It's about willingness. You have the will, and I will teach you the rest. Together, we can build something greater than what I have built alone." Her words filled Dadang with both fear and pride. Fear because he was stepping into a world far beyond what he had ever imagined. Pride because Hana believed in him when he barely believed in himself. In the evenings, Hana began teaching him the basics of her family business. She explained ledgers, customer relations, and even marketing strategies. Though Dadang struggled at first, he surprised Hana with his practical ideas. Simple, grounded suggestions that stemmed from his modest background, but carried wisdom often overlooked in polished boardrooms. One evening, as Hana listened to him describe how a garden could represent growth in business, she smiled warmly. "You see, Dadang? You already think like a leader. You don't just work. You understand." The encouragement made him sit taller, more confident than before. For the first time, he began to imagine himself not just as a worker from Pakistan, but as someone who could truly stand beside Hana as an equal. Amid this new routine of learning and sharing, their affection deepened. Hana found herself leaning on Dadang not just for physical help, but for emotional support. He became her listener when her memories of her late husband resurfaced. He became her strength when business matters wore her down, and Dadang, in turn, found in Hana the guidance he never thought he would have in life: a mentor, a companion, and someone who believed in his potential. Together, they were building not just a relationship, but a foundation for the future. And though whispers of doubt sometimes lingered in the back of their minds, every day spent side by side confirmed one thing: their journey had only just begun. As the weeks rolled into months, Hana and Dadang's bond grew stronger. Their shared laughter, their late-night talks, and their quiet walks in the garden made the house feel more alive than it had in years. Yet beneath the surface of happiness, Hana still carried a deep longing that had never left her, a child of her own. One evening, as the spring air drifted through the open windows, Hana gathered her courage to speak again. They were sitting on the terrace, sipping green tea under the starlit sky. She held her cup tightly, her knuckles white, as if afraid her words might shatter the fragile peace between them. "Dadang," she began softly, "there is one more thing I want. Something I have always dreamed of." He turned toward her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What is it, madame?" She took a long breath. I want to have children. I want to know what it feels like to be a mother. I want to raise a family with you. The words hung in the air like a heavy secret. Dadong felt his chest tighten. At 20, the thought of becoming a father terrified him. He looked down at his hands, unsure how to respond. Madame Hana, he said carefully, I don't know if I am ready. I am still young. I never thought about marriage or fatherhood so soon. I don't know if I can give you what you want. Hana reached out, gently placing her hand over his. You don't need to be perfect, Dadong. I don't expect that. I just need you to be willing. We can learn together. You've already given me joy I thought I would never feel again. With you, I believe a family is possible. For days afterward, Dadong wrestled with her words. He thought about his parents in Pakistan, about the siblings who depended on him. Would they understand if he built a family in Japan? Would they see it as betrayal, or would they see it as the natural course of life? His mind swirled with questions, but each time he saw Hana's hopeful eyes, his doubts began to soften. One morning, while working in the garden, Dadong made his decision. He wiped his hands, turned to Hana, and spoke with quiet determination. If this is what you truly want, Madame Hana, then I will try. I want to give you the happiness you deserve. We can build this family together. Hana's eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer and hugged him tightly, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Thank you, Dadong. You don't know how much this means to me. Months later, Hana discovered she was pregnant. The news filled their home with a new kind of warmth, one that echoed with hope, anticipation, and joy. For Hana, it was a dream finally coming true. For Dadong, it was the start of a responsibility he never imagined, but one he was ready to embrace. The house that had once been silent now carried the promise of new life, and both of them knew their journey had taken a profound turn. The news of Hana's pregnancy filled their once quiet home with a joy neither had imagined. Hana, who had spent years battling loneliness, now carried within her the promise of new life. For Dadong, the reality of fatherhood was both exhilarating and overwhelming. He had left Pakistan with the simple dream of supporting his family, yet fate had given him a new family of his own in Japan. From the very beginning, Dadong devoted himself to Hana's care. Each morning he woke early, preparing her breakfast with recipes he found online. Some attempts were clumsy, orange juice too sour, rice slightly overcooked. But Hana always smiled, assuring him that his effort mattered more than perfection. It's not the taste, Dadong, she would say warmly. It's your care that makes me happy. Evenings became their special time. They would sit together in the nursery they were slowly preparing, flipping through books about pregnancy and childcare. Hana often guided Dadong's hand to her stomach. Talk to the baby, she encouraged, her eyes twinkling. Hesitant at first, Dadong leaned down and whispered, Hello, my son or daughter. This is your father. I promise I will take care of you and your mother. The sincerity in his voice brought tears to Hana's eyes. She placed her hand on his head gently, whispering, You are already a good father. Shopping trips for baby supplies became small adventures. Hana enjoyed watching Dadong's confused expressions as they picked out baby clothes and cribs. Do you think this color is better for a boy or a girl? She asked once, holding up 2 tiny outfits. Dadong, scratching his head, replied, Whichever you choose, Madame Hana, will be perfect. His nervous honesty made her laugh, and for the first time in years, her laughter was filled with hope instead of sorrow. But not every day was easy. Pregnancy brought emotional swings, moments when Hana felt exhausted or fragile. On those days, Dadong never left her side. He reminded her to rest, brought her water, and reassured her with words he barely knew he could say. Please don't worry. Whatever happens, I will take care of everything, he promised. As the months passed, Hana grew more radiant. Her once tired face glowed with life, and Dadong felt pride swell within him. He was not just her helper anymore. He was her partner, her support, and the father of her child. One evening, as they painted the nursery together, Hana stopped, her brush dripping with color. Dadang, she said softly, do you realize how much you've changed my life? You gave me back my dreams. Dadang looked at her, his chest heavy with emotion. And you gave me a life I never thought possible. I came here to work, but instead I found a family. They shared a quiet moment, the kind that did not need words. Around them, the walls of the nursery slowly filled with bright colors, symbols of the future they were building. In that room, surrounded by laughter, paint, and promises, their love deepened into something unshakable. They were no longer two lonely souls. They were becoming a family. The birth of Haruto brought immeasurable joy, but it also deepened the question of permanence. Hana and Dadang both knew that love and parenthood required more than affection. They needed a bond recognized by family and society. It was Hana who spoke first, one quiet evening as they watched Haruto sleep in his crib. Dadang, she whispered, we should marry. Not only for us, but for Haruto. He deserves to grow in a home where love is not just felt, but also honored. Dadang hesitated for a moment, his heart racing. He had thought of this too, but the idea of marriage between a Japanese woman and a Pakistani man seemed daunting. Would either of their families accept it? Would the world allow them peace? The answer came days later when Dadang gathered his courage and called his parents back in Pakistan. The sound of his father's deep voice and his mother's emotional tone carried through the phone line. Ami Abu, there is something important I want to tell you, Dadang said, his voice trembling. I want to marry Madame Hana. She has given me respect, love, and a family. I want you both to be here. Silence stretched for a long moment before his mother's sobs of joy filled the line. Alhamdulillah, my son. If you are happy, we are happy. His father, though more reserved, added firmly, you are a man now, Dadang. If this is your choice, we will stand with you. When Hana heard their response, she was moved to tears. She immediately arranged everything, tickets, passports, visas, for Dadang's parents to fly to Japan. This is not just our marriage, she told him gently. It is the joining of our families. The wedding day arrived like a scene from a dream. The garden outside Hana's house was transformed into a hall of blossoms and lanterns. Guests from both Japanese and Pakistani communities attended, curious and supportive of this unlikely union. Hana looked stunning in a traditional white Japanese bridal kimono, her elegance radiating dignity. Dadang, nervous but proud, wore a tailored suit that made him appear older than his years. As vows were exchanged, Hana spoke first, her voice steady but emotional. Dadang is not only the one who ended my loneliness. He is the one who taught me what family means, what love without barriers feels like. Today, I am not just marrying him, I am marrying his family, his culture, his roots. Dadang's voice trembled as he responded, Madam Hana, no, my Hana. You gave me a new life. You saw me not as a poor boy from Pakistan, but as a man worthy of love. Today, I promise to protect you, to honor you, and to raise our son with all the love I have. The crowd erupted in applause, tears flowing freely among friends and relatives. Dadang's parents embraced Hana warmly, calling her their daughter. Haruto, in his tiny ceremonial outfit, became the symbol of two worlds united. From that day forward, the house that was once silent became the heart of a new family, Japanese and Pakistani, bound by love that crossed oceans, cultures, and fears. And as Hana, Dadang, and little Haruto stood together under the lantern-lit sky, they knew that their story was proof of one eternal truth: love knows no boundaries.